Okay, and welcome, Year 8, to another lesson in case you're self-isolating. Today's lesson is sort of one of the final lessons on slavery. It's going to be where you're actually going to write your own answer to the question that we've been trying to answer, which is what was the global impact of the slave trade? Okay, but what I'm going to do this lesson is give you a little bit of support to show you how I'd go about it, to help you get there, and then to sort of let you go and let you have a go on your own. Okay, but like with all lessons, obviously in history especially, knowledge is really, really key. So what we've got here is we've got a quick starter, but you might want to, well, you will want to make sure you've got some paper and pens today, because you're going to need some paper to write with, because I've got a few worksheets that I'm going to show you, so you have to set them out like I'm going to set them out, and two colours, a green to check your work with. Okay, so I'm just going to quickly share this. So here are some statements. All you need to do is go through them and decide if they're right. If they're right, leave them. If not, change them. So there might be a few errors in each one. So I want you to read it, check it, see if you like it. If not, change the bits that you think are incorrect and improve them, okay? I think you need about 6 minutes for this, so if you pause it to give yourself a chance before I go through the answers. Okay, pause it now and then answer it. Okay, so here are the answers. So Europeans began to racialize Africans in the 16th century, not the 13th century, 16th, because the 16th is when they start traveling around. 13th in Europe, well, that's 1200, so we've barely even got parliament set up. So by believing white people were naturally superior to black people, okay, so that word there, by believing, is obviously really important, because that is not true. White people are not superior to black people, but they believe that, okay? And that's what the word racialization is all about. And that then leads to the harsh treatment and the racism that we know all about. Okay, so in the 16th and 17th, so not the 19th, okay, much earlier than that, 16th and 17th century, European empires began to travel and trade with countries around the Atlantic, not the Pacific. Atlantic Ocean there is really, really key, because that's where we're focusing on. And the next one is, instead of the local impact, it's the global impact. Instead of just of the slave trade, well, of the slave trade, we've learned about African slavery. I've touched on Roman slavery. There's loads and loads of different types of slavery, so we need to be specific in our answer. So the Atlantic slave trade in. So, oh, that's not, so it's meant to just be the global impact of the Atlantic slave trade was an increase. That's incorrect. It was an increase in racism globally. So abolitionists such as William Wilberforce, if you include that, great, and Olaudah Equiano were influential in ending the British involvement. So Mansa Musa was not an abolitionist. He was an extremely wealthy ruler in Africa. So an abolitionist is all about stopping something or making something illegal, in this case slavery or slave trade. So they ended the British involvement in the Atlantic slave trade. If you want to be even more specific, 1807 would be a great date to remember. So what we're going to do today is we're going to have a think about what was the global impact of the slave trade. So last lesson we had a recall, and we're going to answer that today. Okay, so first thing I want you to do is, what we are going to do is we are going to plan our answer. Okay, now I want to show you how we're going to plan it in a second, and then this will become much clearer. Okay, so the way we're going to plan our answers, we're going to plan it a little bit like this, okay? So your paragraph, you're going to have 3 paragraphs, 1, 2, and 3. And what I've given you in each one is I've given you a topic sentence, some supporting detail. So these are your facts. and then you've got a conclusion sentence. So this is how you're going to start off your answer. Let's see if I can get out of the shadow of the light. So this is how you're going to start your answer. So it's like the full sentence you're going to use. It's going to use the wording of the questions, just like you've done. This is going to be what you're actually going to talk about. What is good? What are the facts, the figures? What are the things that I'm answering the question? And then this is your conclusion. Okay. So that's how we're going to set it out. But to help us do that, what I'm going to do is I'm going to give you this activity here. Okay. So for the first paragraph is going to be on the destruction of Africa. And what you're going to need to do is you're going to need to have a think about which out of those statements there, so these ones here, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, you've got 6. You need to identify the best topic sentence and supporting details from those on, not on your sheet, it's just here. So a topic sentence is something that gives the paragraph's main idea to a reader really, really simply. So for instance, if your paragraph is about the destruction of Africa, it tells you that the answer is going to be all about destruction of Africa. Simple. The supporting detail of the sentences that provide the information for that. So what I would like you to do is I would like you to write these 6 sentences out, and where I've left a blank, I would like you to tell me if that's supporting detail or if that's a topic sentence. There may be more than one topic sentence. If so, I would like you to circle the best one. This should take you around 4.5 minutes. I'd like you to pause that, and off you go. Okay, welcome back then, Year 8. So, the first one, Africa was viewed as a dark continent. Well, it's telling you nothing about the question, so that's going to be supporting detail. Damage from warfare increased as guns were introduced. So damage from warfare, it's talking about destruction. It's explaining destruction, but it's not using the wording of the question. So again, it's supporting detail. The global impact of the Atlantic slave trade was the damage to African society. Well, I know instantly then it's using the word of the question. So great, it's a good full sentence. And it's telling me that it's the damage to Africa that the topics that the paragraph's going to be about. So great. 12 to 15 million people enslaved. Well, that's not really, that's very, very specific. So that's going to be supporting detail. Anna Nzinga fought the Portuguese Empire. Again, that's very specific. So that has to be supporting detail. And then the impact of the slave trade was the damage caused. So it's talking about damage, it's talking about impact, so it's talking about what the sentence is going to be about, it's talking about the word, using the word in the question, but then you have to think, which is better out of those topic sentences? Global impact of the Atlantic slave trade was the damage to African society, or the impact of the slave trade, which is more specific? I'd say the global impact of the Atlantic slave trade was damage to African societies, because it's talking about, specifically about Africa, talking about the Atlantic and talking about global. So I would say that is a better answer. And that is why I am now going to show you how I have put that into my plan. So let me just get the sharing up. So here you go. So this is how I would have set it out. So again, I've gone for the one that talked about global impact of the Atlantic slave trade damage to Africa. Okay, what makes this a good topic sentence is the question is, what was the global impact of the Atlantic slave trade? So it's answering that question, isn't it? What was the global impact? The global impact was, so it's answering the question. Okay, and now I know that my paragraph's going to be about this, damage to African society. Okay, so based on that now, okay, what I would like you to do now is I would like you to create your own topic sentence for paragraph 3. Okay, So paragraph 1 is about the increasing superiority of the European empires. Paragraph 3, I would like you now to tell me, give me a topic sentence for paragraph 3, and this is going to be about racialization or racism. Okay, so all you do is creating a topic sentence. There's one here and there's one there. So create a topic sentence for paragraph 3, please. Pause it to give yourself 2 minutes. Okay, well, if you're back and need a bit of help, use the wording of the question. So, the global impact of the Atlantic slave, I was going to say trade, was. So, the global impact of the Atlantic slave trade was the increasing racism of what? Who were being racist? Well, it was Europeans, wasn't it? Of European society. Right, so that's what my paragraph is going to be about. Okay. So now that we've got that, what I would like you to do now, what you need to do is you are in a second going to be filling out these 2 paragraphs. Okay. So we've already done paragraph 1. You've understood that, you've read it, you've seen it. What I'd like you to do now is set these out on your piece of paper. So it can just be 2 lines for that. So 2 lines. 1, 1, 1, 1, 2 or 3. Okay. So set that out in your book. Okay. So that should take you a couple of minutes. So pause it and come back to me when you're finished. Okay, welcome back. So what I'd now like you to do is at the bottom here, you have a number of pieces of supporting detail. What I'd like you to do now is there's 2 for each. I would like you to put those in the correct place. Is that paragraph 2, which is about the increasing superiority of the European empires? Is that about increasing racism? Okay, you decide where those pieces of supporting detail are going to go. Okay, well, let's have a look. So cotton, tobacco and sugar was exported. So was exported. Well, that's all about money. So that's going to be about European superiority. So I'm going to write ES here. Wilberforce was remembered above black abolitionists. Well, you could argue that's racist then. So that's going to be about racism. Racialization of slavery, that's racism. Increased tariffs. Tariffs are charging someone money to bring something into the country, like a tax, due to increased trade. So that's European superiority. Okay, great. So we've got 2 for each. We've got 1, 2, 3, 4. What I'd now like you to do is try to recall the information you've learned in the past couple of lessons. And I would like you now to finish these paragraph plans off. So you have 4 pieces of supporting detail for each one. Okay, I'm just going to fill this in here. All right, probably got enough time by the time I get to the end here. Okay, so you should now have 4 pieces of supporting detail for each one. That's great. What we need to do now is we need to do our conclusion sentences. Okay, now an example of one would be here. So, therefore, that's always a key one. You might always see sort of in conclusion as well. So the aim of a conclusion sentence is to summarize what you've said, because the way I see it is if your paragraphs are getting really long, the person at the end might have forgotten what you tried to say, so it's just one more chance to answer that question. Okay, so therefore the impact of the Atlantic slave trade was damaging to Africa. So again, we're using the wording of the question. Impact of the Atlantic slave trade was damaging to Africa. So WTQ, wording of the question, because you have to answer the question again, otherwise there's no point. So to make sure you do use the words. You may feel you're repeating yourself, but it's good writing. It's just not beautiful writing, but history is about getting your point across, not about being, not having the most beautiful writing. Therefore, the impact of the Atlantic slave trade was damaging to Africa due to, so in other words, say because, so due to increasing warfare, increasing racist view of Africa, and removing citizens. Well, isn't that what I've talked about here? Warfare, racism, removal. So what I've done is I've just summarized what I've said. So in one sentence, just said exactly what I've said. That's it. That's all you have to do. Right, now what I'd like you to do is try and have a go at finishing this conclusion sentence here for your second paragraph. So this second paragraph is about increasing superiority of the European empires. So the European empires increasing in money or power. So what would you say here? Try to summarize what you've put in these 4 things. Therefore, the impact of the slave trade was the increased superiority of European empires, such as, you might want to change that to because if you want. Okay. Might need a few more minutes. Pause it if you need a bit more. If not, focus. So therefore, the impact of the slave trade was the increasing superiority of European empires, such as the increasing wealth of key industries, the wealth of governments, and so I've talked about these 2 here, and you can also say, well, if they're stealing from other people, if they're stealing money, if they're stealing, 12 million people, Africa's going to get affected. Okay, if it's controlling the Americas and they're taking all of the goods created out, the Americas are being made poorer. So therefore, it's not just Europe's made richer, it's everywhere else made poorer. So the increasing wealth of key industries, wealth of governments, and the decreasing wealth of other nations. So I'm going to make sure I change that to because of the increasing wealth. Yeah, great. Okay, now what I'd like you to do is now, without any support, so all I would say is use the wording of the question and summarize. Create your own conclusion sentence there. Probably take 2 more minutes, so pause it if you need more time. Okay, great. Well, I'm not going to do the answer for you because you're going to have a chance to write this down in a second. Now, what we're doing, I'll zoom this out, is you've got this plan now. Now what we're going to do is I'm going to show you how you turn one paragraph, one of these plans, into a paragraph. So I'm going to turn this one here to this paragraph, and then you're going to have a go at completing the rest of that question for these two paragraphs here. All right, so the global impact of the slave trade was the damage to African society. So that's my topic sentence. I've just written that word for word as it is because I wrote that in a full sentence, so I don't see any point in changing it at all. Okay, if I wrote it in notes, so if you make the mistake and wrote it in notes, then you will have to write it into a full sentence. But if you've done it like I have, you can just completely rewrite that. It's a bit of a cheat, but it's not really a cheat, it's just the effect of a good plan, really. Okay, so the global impact of the Atlantic slave trade was the damage to African society. So European empires captured African people and then enslaved them, as well as trading with African leaders to gain enslaved people. Right, now my first point was here, was 12 to 15 million people enslaved and transported to America. So I've just put that in a sentence, haven't I? So I've just talked about European empires capturing African people and enslaved them. So at the moment, that hasn't answered the question yet, and that's fine. So in total, 12 to 15 million people, and this is using specific facts transported to the Americas. I could have mentioned here called the Middle Passage. Now that was just all facts, okay? Now in blue, what I'm going to do is this is now answering the question. This is damaging. Question is, what was the global impact? I've said I'm damaging, so I'm making answer the question. So this is damaging as a huge proportion of African people were taken, meaning societies now no longer had people needed to continue their communities. Families would have died out and communities suffered. So they haven't got these people to build houses, to make, to build farms, to make the wealth and support the people. Okay, so I've given some my supporting detail, but then I've made it answer the question in terms of damage, which is what my paragraph's about. If anything that's in this paragraph not about damage should be in a different paragraph. That's why we write in paragraphs. So next bit, European. So we're talking about damage. Next bit is Europeans fought African societies. For example, so I'm using specific facts. So orange equals facts, green equals sort of topic in a way, sort of the opening, and blue equals ATQ, answering the question. Again, this is damaging as more people died in warfare, and communities would have spent resources on warfare rather than on other important matters. So I'm talking about death and resources. I'm talking about two things at once here. So Europeans also bought African people in return for goods such as weapons. So my second piece of supporting detail, or my third, sorry. So 1, 2, 3. This resulted in future warfare on African soil being more deadly, meaning more people died. Okay, so this is actually, I haven't used the word in this question, but I'm talking about death, which is about damage, isn't it? So due to Europeans increasing racism, that's the next point, that's the next supporting detail. Discussed in the late paragraph, Africa was seen as a dark continent. So I've used my specific facts. This meant Africa was viewed as a savage society, is increasing the damage. See what I'm talking? I'm talking about damage the whole way through, done in terms of reputation, but in different ways. So I've got death, I've got reputation, I've got wealth. Now this last bit, this bit's referring to the question again, but it's about the topic. So this is the conclusion sentence. You can just write that out as is. So what I'd take from this is topic sentence, then you full sentence, you can't see that, can you? So go topic sentence and add full sentence your supporting detail. Give examples. Then make it answer the question. And repeat. Times 3/4 times, and then conclusion sentence. That's how you write this. So that's how you write this. So you do that same pattern 3 or 4 times, and then use your conclusion sentence. Okay. So I'm going to now share the question. So what you need to do is you need to answer this question now. Okay. I'm not going to give you too many sort of sentence starters or anything, because you've got those, they're in the question, they're in the model answer. We've talked about those a few times now. Okay, so complete that. You need 2 paragraphs on the first one. 2 paragraphs off. Send them to your teacher when you're finished, or bring them in. Okay. As always, it'll be a pleasure seeing you back in school. Can't wait. All right, bye.